Hey, y'all. I am coming at you at a different location today. Hold up, now I'm saying my connection is weak. Come on now. All these windows in here now. Come on. We not doing this today. Um, let me, let's see. Hmm. All right. So hopefully you guys can see this and it's clear. There we go. We disappeared. Hey y'all, it is me again. Happy Friday. It is Shalita O'Neill, founder and CEO of Fostering Change Network and the creator of the nonprofit Visionary Academy. And today I've had a couple of people reach out, a couple of my nonprofit visionaries, to let me know what they want to hear from me about. And it's specific to how do you create a realistic budget for your new nonprofit organization? So I'm going to wait a little bit just to give people the opportunity to join in. So I'm going to, have a little sip of my coffee because I haven't had my coffee this morning and it's afternoon, so you know how that is. So I give you some time to get situated and for a couple people to join in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay? Okay. Let me fog my glasses up. Wait a minute. Hot coffee. Delicious. Ooh, that's better. Y'all know, sometimes things just don't, it's not right if you don't have your caffeine. I know for me anyway. So we're going to wait a second for folks to join. Hey, lady, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Alana. Hopefully what we share today is going to help you. You're going to have your budget before you know it. You're going to be raising the funds in order to get the things on your budget. So no worries. We're going to get started shortly. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. So everybody who's joining, please share. This is something that you've been in conversation with somebody about, or maybe that has come up with somebody who started a nonprofit that are like talking about budget. Budget is so important for so many different reasons in so many different areas of our life, but especially when you're starting a new endeavor like a nonprofit organization. We can't be afraid to talk about money. We can't be afraid to be realistic about what it is that we're going to need the money for, because when we're going out here and we're talking to people about our nonprofit, we're sharing our vision, our elevator pitch and everything, the question is going to come up, well, how much money do you need and what is the money going toward? And if you can't answer that question, then you can't expect people to want to put their money and invest their money into you and your organization if you haven't thought about that. So today we're going to talk about what's a realistic budget. Sometimes with us being nonprofit visionaries, again, we're all humble and we're not gonna have any salaries. We're not gonna do any of this because, we just want to help. And in order for us to really help others and to really build the programming and services that we say we want to provide, we are going to have to be realistic about the money that we're going to need to do it and really be inclusive about what those things are. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to just go over a couple of things. So the first thing is, okay, what should be included in your budget? Now, keep in mind, we're nonprofit visionaries. We're just starting up, right? So it's not like you're going to need to pay $30,000 in rent or all this other type of stuff, or even have to pay rent. Initially, I remember when I started, I was working out of my apartment. Nowadays, they are, you may know other people who are running nonprofit organizations or incubators that don't mind allowing you to use some office space, while you're building your organization. You may not even have to pay for that. So there's things that you don't want to necessarily put in your first year budget for your nonprofit that maybe later on you're going to need to consider. But initially, we're talking about the first year budget. And for those nonprofit visionaries who are part of the hashtag nonprofit no filter membership, I'm going to post in our Facebook page examples of the budget. different formats and some other helpful links that'll help you sort of think through what your budget should look like. So make sure you look for that. After we finish the video, I'll make sure I post that in our private Facebook page. If you are watching this and you are not part of our Nonprofit Visionary Facebook page, I encourage you to go to ShalitaO'Neal.com and sign up as a hashtag nonprofit no filter member, because as part of that membership, you will have access to that Facebook group. You will have access to videos, specific to what are some of the things that you're going through or information that you're going to need. You will have access to other types of forms, templates. You'll have access to me, okay? So that's great. That's some good stuff. So if you're not a part of it, please sign up for it, okay? So what needs to be included? So typically, what needs to be included is, especially in the first year, that you may not necessarily think about afterwards, or that a lot of people don't think about, is one, as you're establishing your board, you're going to need to have board insurance. So that's, and again, like I said, I'll include that in the form that I'll put in the Nonprofit Visionaries Facebook group. So you're going to need to have board insurance, which pretty much covers your board from any sorts of or certain types of litigation or complaints. People that are joining your board are going to want to know that you have insurance, so that people can't just come out of the woodworks and try to sue them for things, or hold them responsible for certain things on behalf of the nonprofit organization. So you're going to need board insurance. You're going to need to think of things like your domain name when you're getting your website. You need to put that in there. You also need to put the cost for your website. You need to also consider your logo. And typically, there's different people you have to shop around for, different designers, and prices, and their fees can vary. So, I put anything from $500 to $1,000 for a really good logo and a really good sort of design for your brand. So you want to make sure you're putting your marketing as line items in there as well. You want to make sure that you're putting in a line item for an accountant. So somebody who's going to actually be keeping your books, a bookkeeper, account, a CPA. You're going to need that. When we're talking about starting off seriously, right? We're not, just going to go out here and half tail it. You know what I wanted to say. But we're not going to go out here and, sort of not do what we need to do initially because we're trying to cut corners. When you're building a strong foundation for your organization, make sure that you write in your budget those professionals that are going to be there to help you make sure you stay in compliance as a nonprofit. And an accountant, one of the biggest things, you want to make sure you keep your books clean. You want to make sure that if a funder asks you for a report, that you can pull it. That when they're looking to make sure you're in compliance, filing your 990s and such, you want to make sure you're going to have to pay somebody to do that. So make sure that's in your line item for your budget as well. You also want to make sure that you put in, if there are other types of consultants that you're going to need to engage initially around your organization. So it's not just, the designer is a consultant, okay? The accountant is a consultant. You need to reach out to someone to maybe help give you guidance, somebody like myself who are going to, help you build programming or, give you some sort of capacity building support. You want to make sure you think of what could that possibly be and make a line item for it. Again, I can't give you an amount because you're going to need to shop around for people who you want to do that for you, but I can tell you that it needs to be in your budget as a line item. You also need to write yourself in there. Come on, guys. You as an executive director, and maybe even you might just be stepping in as an executive director initially and you plan to hire somebody else to come in and do it, that's fine. But you still need to have a line item for something that's realistic for the first year for an executive director's position. For me, when I started, I gave myself $30,000 initially. I know, that's not a lot for people to be able to live off of or any of that, but initially, you need to be able to, you still need to put something in there that's realistic, because if you're not getting any money in and you're paying yourself $50,000, $60,000 and you don't have any programming and you don't, then you really can't, you can't justify that. So you want to make sure that it's realistic. And then as you're building out your budget from like year 2 and year 3, you are budgeting for increase because the work is going to increase and the services that you're going to be providing are going to be increasing. So you want to make sure you progress, but initially put something, reasonable, modest in there, but you have to put something in there, and don't just put something that's so small that really isn't going to help you with your time. Because again, I said this in a previous video, when people are funding, or donors or large foundations are thinking about funding you, they want to make sure that you're actually have written something in the budget that's enough that they can have confidence that you're actually contributing to the organization, that you actually can dedicate time to the organization. So I would say in the first year, make sure you put yourself in there as for a salary, a full-time salary. You may need you will need a part-time person. And what you can do is leverage. So maybe you have a part-time admin assistant or something like that, where you might give them, you might only need them 15 hours a week or something like that. But you might put in the budget maybe $15,000 for the year for a part-time person for 15 hours a week, or something like that. And then you can maybe also have them help you field calls for programmatic needs. So if there's an event that you're having, or a client that you want to help work with, and you need somebody to to take that call and to set up that meeting, you definitely want to make sure that you're leveraging that admin person. And initially, we're going to start out modest. You're not going to hire 5 and 10 people because you can't, right? Because you don't have the money yet. So you have to really be creative. But I would definitely put it in your budget for a part-time admin assistant and a part-time program person, right? So put that in there. Again, the amounts, it's really up to what you're comfortable with, but I would suggest for a part-time admin person, $15,000 for the first year, $10,000 to $15,000, and a part-time program person around the same amount, just to get started. And as I shared with you guys before, you can leverage staff with other organizations. So there might be another nonprofit organization who is doing similar work. You're offering something that they need, and vice versa. So maybe they might be willing to lend you some staff. Or maybe your board, a board member might be willing to step in to serve in a volunteer capacity to help you with some of the programmatic stuff initially while you're working to bring in money. But I would say in your budget, make sure that is at least a line item, so you're prepping for it in case those other things fall through. Okay, so you want to make sure you have the salaries in there. Of course, like I said, the insurances for your board. You're also going to have to put in a lot for workers' compensation and so workers' compensation and what is it? There's other insurances, employment insurances for your employees that you're going to need to also have. Again, for those who are part of the Nonprofit Visionary Academy and who are members, I will post a form, a sample form that has all of this in there, so you don't have to try to guess and remember or figure it out. Okay, so just so you know that. So those are a couple of things. You also want to make sure you include your filing paperwork. So if you're starting a nonprofit, of course, just starting up and you haven't done your paperwork yet, you're going to need to put that as a line item. And there's 2 separate things. So one, you have to incorporate with your state. Wherever you are, you have to incorporate with your state initially. And those fees range. I know in Maryland, I paid $150 to be incorporated. And you must file that first before you file your 501c3 paperwork, which is called a 1023 form. And that 1023 form costs $850. That's the federal form to be acknowledged federally as a nonprofit organization, tax exempt organization. Now, if I believe one of the nonprofit visionaries stated that she was able to file her paperwork for $400. Now, that you can file your paperwork for $400 as opposed to $850 if in the first 4 years you don't expect to exceed $10,000 in revenue each year. Okay, so I would caution people, don't try to, just because it's $450 less, don't try to say, okay, well, I'm not going to make over $10,000 in the first 4 years, because you're not setting the bar very high at all for your nonprofit. And if you're following anything that I've been sharing with you, you're definitely going to make more than $10,000 in your first, second, third, and fourth year. But if you really feel like this is just something you're just kind of half doing, you might raise some money, you might not, you don't know, and you want to file, and as being in that category, then that's $400 for the filing fee. And some people have asked, well, will they come back and penalize me if I make more, if I file as not expecting more than $10,000 a year for the first 4 years, but I actually bring in more money. And nobody really has an answer to that. I don't think that the IRS is going to be out here like, oh, you made some more, you owe me $450. But just to be safe, because the IRS is unpredictable. You don't really know what they might want to do. So you want to set yourself up for success in the beginning. So those are sort of the parameters. And Alana, you said Georgia has a state incorporation. You have to announce in the newspaper, $40, 1023 filing business license, and file as a charitable, organization, right? So what, depending on what state you're in, you definitely, the best thing to do is to go to irs.gov and look up what are some of the specific requirements for your state. And I'll also, in the Nonprofit Visionaries Facebook group, I'm going to put in some links to some forms from the IRS website that specifically go over filing and the 1023s and that sort of thing, so that you'll know where to find it. But for everyone else, the irs.gov, definitely a wonderful resource that will give you all of your information around what are the filing fees, what are the steps, what do they expect, and what are the requirements. So make sure that you frequent that often. And I would put a word of caution out there too, because there's a lot of third-party organizations or individuals that will try to charge you for free information that you can go to the irs.gov to get. So be very careful about that. I even have noticed that there's been some websites that will try to charge you for an EIN number, which is also something that you're going to need to get. And if you go on the irs.gov, you can do that for free, right? So don't be careful about being so anxious to get stuff done that you don't check in with the sources, because there's a lot of things out there you don't have to pay for that third-party people will try to get you on. Okay, so as a resource, irs.gov, make sure that you're looking there for all the questions and regulations regarding that. So again, going back to the budget, make sure that you budget $850 for the federal and at least $150 for the state recognition. And yes, Alana, you have to be cautious about people charging for your EIN and your DUNS number like that. Those are things that are just generated. You can go online, you can go directly to the source and get those things and get that information. So do your research so you're not out of any unnecessary money. Okay? All right. So those are just some examples of what should be in your budget. You should also include a line item for equipment. So as you're first starting up, you're going to need computers. You're going to need, if it's for you and someone else, when I say computers, you're going to need, depending on who you're engaging or you're hiring, they're going to need supplies. They're going to need a cell phone. They're going to need different things like that. So you want to make sure that you estimate kind of what do you think that might be or might look like, determining or depending on what it is that you want to provide. Make sure you put that in your budget so that you can account for that. Of course, one of the things is we're creating this budget, but for when I say worst case scenario, that means like if you have to raise money to cover some of these things, what you really want to be trying to do is make sure that you're getting these things donated, right? So, you could get equipment donated, or you can get it sponsored, or someone else could, as wanting to help you establish your nonprofit, somebody else could pay for these things for you. But if they don't, you need to make sure you have it accounted for in your budget, that this is something that you're raising money for. Okay? And so that leads me into non-programmatic items. So Alana, I know one of the questions that you had in the Facebook group was, well, how do you get fundraisers or funders to sponsor fundraising events? Because a lot of people may say they don't want to sponsor events. That's not what they do. But you still need, in order, you need to have these events in order to raise awareness, in order to get other people engaged around what you're doing. So my answer to that would be, it's about your messaging. Okay, so if you go out and you just ask people, I want funding for, for this fundraising event, it's gonna be great. I want to bring some people together and we're gonna raise some money. Some people may be a little bit leery about that, but if you're more specific around what it is you need, so making it clear to people that I just started this organization and I'm trying to raise seed dollars to fund some of the things that I'm going to need in order to begin offering services. Okay, people don't mind donate when you make it clear and say this I'm just starting up, this is seed money, I want to provide these services, I want to have these programs, this is the change I want to create in the world, but in order for me to do that I need support with these items. So the funding that I'm raising is going to help me get a logo. It's going to help me get my messaging out there so that I can let people know about what I'm doing. It's going to help me be able to get the equipment I need to provide the services. So be specific. And what I would say around the fundraising events too is people in general, because people have told me the same thing. Oh, well, we don't fund conferences, or we don't fund this because there's no outcomes or whatever. Okay, well, break it down. Okay, well, will you fund some people to come to the conference? In my example, will you fund some foster youth to come to a conference? Oh yeah, we'll fund that, but we're not just going to give you $5,000 for your conference. So be very specific around what do you need. If you need a food sponsor, hey, I'm having a fundraising event for my organization. Would you mind sponsoring the food? Or would you mind sponsoring the venue? And sometimes people may not want to come out of their pocket, but they will know someone who may have a venue that they can just make available to you. Or they may know someone who runs a food shop who will make food available to you. So sometimes it's not always in the form of money, but it's in the form of other types of resources that will allow you to be able to maximize the money that you're getting in from that fundraising event to go completely to the seed dollars and the program development, right? So just keep that in mind. Everything that you do, or the messaging that you're putting out there, the strategy that you're using to get items covered for fundraising events, so that in essence, you're not paying anything to put the event on. Everything everything that's coming in from that fundraising event will be able to go directly to your seed money, right? So that we're talking about startup, we're talking about the launch event, right? That will go to the seed money that'll get you into a position where you can then start providing programs and services effectively. Okay? So, yeah. So Alana, I hope I answered your question as it pertains to that. Again, I'll go back and recap. If no one else has any other questions, I'll go back and recap on it. So we're talking about creating a realistic budget for your new nonprofit. So you want to make sure there's certain line items that some people do not think about in the first year of a nonprofit organization that you want to make sure you cover. And some of those things are board insurance. Excuse me. So I believe it's called DOD insurance. Directors of, I'll post that too, but it's a director's insurance. So it covers your board members from anyone, trying to sue them for things that are related to the organization. So you want to make sure you have that insurance. You got to keep or take into consideration workers' comp and unemployment insurance. So these types of insurances that are linked to hiring people. So if you put it in your budget that you're going to be hiring a part-time person or a full-time person, you're going to hire yourself as executive director, you're going to have to be in compliance with different types of insurances that you need to have, right? So again, those people that are part of the Nonprofit Visionaries Academy and the Nonprofit No Filter membership, I will provide you a copy of a sample budget that has all of these items in it with estimated amounts that you can tweak. That's flexible, so be looking out for that. But you want to make sure, and there's ways around it, so maybe instead of hiring people, you contract the first year so that, until you can get enough money to be able to then bring them on as full-time employees, and then all the insurances and responsibilities come with that. So, again, that's a conversation that, one-on-one we can have, or offline, just reach out to me. And yeah, so you want to make sure you include that. You want to make sure you include all of the initial launching materials that you're going to need. So like your logo, your website, your domain name that you're going to need to link to your website for your organization. include those, because you may not need to include that in the second year at the same rate, but initially you need to put money in your budget for this. Okay, you also need to put money in budget for equipment, so computers, cell phones, whatever types of equipment that you're going to need to start your work. You may need to put something small possibly for rent in there if you're maybe you're another organization is saying, yes, I'll open up my space for you, but I need $50 a month, or ideally we want them to say it's free, come on, let's partner. But not everybody's going to be like that, and some people they need support for their overhead as well. So you want to make sure you put that in the budget. You want to make sure you put in the budget for your organizing your filing forms. Again, as I shared before, if you are planning to gross more than $10,000 a year in your first 4 years, then that's going to be $850 for your forms, for the federal forms. If you're planning to make less than $10,000 in your first 4 years of existence, then it's $400. Again, this information can be found on the irs.gov website. I suggest you go there for every single question you have around starting up your nonprofit, as far as regulations, requirements. irs.gov is the source. Go to the source. Don't get got by people who are trying to charge you for third-party information when you can go to the source for free. Okay, so make sure you do that. There, also make sure you include in your line item the cost to incorporate with your state, which varies from state to state. So make sure, again, you go on irs.gov to see what your state might require. Thank you, Alana. So it's D&O, Directors and Officers Insurance. Yes, that's what it is. Yes, and it's something too that you want to make sure you have, and you can mention that to your board members or your potential board members as you're recruiting them to kind of quell some of maybe their concerns around becoming a board member. They might be getting sued, or they might this and might that. As you develop in your second year and your third year, you're going to need to write in line items for liability insurance, different types of insurances for you that will cover the staff and everything, in case a client says, oh, well, Alana said this to me and I want to sue her. So there's some protections. The rabbit hole goes deep, but you know what? We taking it one little bit at a time. So make sure you have the D&O insurance the first year and you start out on a good foot. So that's in your line item as well as part of your budget. And also I would add too that any program activities, so let's say you want to provide some training or something like that for young people. Again, I always go back to foster care. Young people in foster care, you want to do some training. Okay, well, you have to put in a line item for that. What if you want to provide, you want to do little activities, you want to provide some food, you want to, printing materials for that training, little pencils, whatever it is that you need, you want to make sure you put a line item. Again, our goal is to get everything in this budget sponsored, okay? Or somebody donated, or we get a funder that'll say, I'll take that piece. That's the plan. That would be absolutely amazing. But in case that doesn't happen, and in case you run into people that say, I just want to give you some money, what are you using it towards? You will have a budget to be able to guide you and to share with other people what exactly you're going to do with the money, okay? So our goal is to get everything sponsored, because you can, but in case it doesn't work out, we need to know what we're going to need to be prepared to pay or raise to get some stuff done. Okay, so then we also talked about how do you get donors and funders who typically say, I do not support fundraising, I do not fund that, I want to fund program services. Okay, well, it's about the messaging. You want to be very clear in the beginning that I'm just starting out. I need seed dollars. I can't, listen, how am I going to go out here and provide a service? I don't have no phone, no cell phone, I don't have no computer, I can't pay for no printing materials, I don't have no what to do. Come on now, let's be realistic about this thing. So it's about your messaging. I need help in order to be able to begin providing services. This is what your money will go towards. Let's say you're having a fundraising event. They say they don't fund the event. They don't typically sponsor fundraising events. Okay, well, they can take a piece of it. So I understand you don't fund the entire event, but is there a way maybe you could help sponsor the food, or you can help sponsor the gift bags, or you can help sponsor the venue? The different pieces you're going to need to be either raise money for or get somebody to donate, be specific about what their money will support. And then somebody can say, oh, okay, well, I could get the food. Okay, I can, or if they don't have the funds, they might know someone, like I said before, that may own a restaurant that will be more than happy to sponsor food for you, or provide food for you. Or they might know someone who owns a really nice venue that has no problem with letting you use their venue. So those are costs that you don't have to worry about at all. Don't even have to raise money for, because someone else has sponsored it. And even though they didn't give you money, they still were able to support you by, it's almost essentially money, because you don't have to come out of your pocket with that. Okay, so make it very specific with people who might be interested in, they're not interested in funding your event, but they still may be able to support you in some way. You need to break it down and say, okay, can you fund this, or can you sponsor this? And most people are, once you make it very clear what you're needing, what you're asking for, most people are more than happy to either provide it themselves or connect you with someone who can. Okay, so that's a way around it. It's all about your messaging and all about being clear. This is seed money that's going towards A, B, and C. And that A, B, and C is coming from your budget line items. Okay? All right, y'all. Well, I hope I was helpful with this creating a realistic budget for your new nonprofit organization. If you have any questions, you may be watching this after the fact, just drop it in the comment box. I will be notified and I will answer your question to the best of my ability. If you haven't already, please, if you've been finding these videos helpful, go to ShalitaO'Neal.com to see how you can become a #nonprofit no filter member, because that way I can really be able to pour into you and give you all of the templates, the forms, the information, maybe some one-on-one time. The videos are great, but sometimes you just need to be able to reach out to somebody and ask them one-on-one a question that you might have. And so please consider becoming a member, because I'm going to post a couple of links associated with this video in the Nonprofit Visionary Facebook page, okay, or group. So happy Friday, y'all. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope it's not too hectic. Again, I hope you're not waiting till the last minute to shop like me. We're going to get through this, okay? All right, so I will see you again on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, be blessed.